The chamber stretched wide enough to hold mountains. 200 species filled the seats, their voices creating a noise that sounded like wind through a broken city. Ambassador Minho Park stood at the human platform, his hands behind his back, watching the chaos. Next to him, Yuna Kim shifted her weight from foot to foot. She was young for a diplomat, barely 30, and this was her first major Senate session. The High Chancellor Vextor spread his wings. They were golden and enormous, catching the light from the chamber's artificial sun. When he spoke, his voice boomed through every translator in the room. The vote is final. All member species will contribute 40% of their industrial capacity to the Galactic Defense Initiative. No exceptions. No delays. No Burfenti. No Burfenti. Minho pressed the button on his platform. A soft chime rang out, requesting permission to speak. Several senators groaned. One laughed openly. The humans wish to speak again, Vextor said. His beak clicked in what might have been amusement. Very well. Ambassador Park, you have 2 minutes. Minho stepped forward. His voice was calm and clear. High Chancellor, esteemed members of the Senate, humanity cannot agree to this treaty, as written. We are willing to contribute 20% of our industrial capacity. We believe this is fair and reasonable. However, we must request 3 amendments. Amendments, Senator Grawl repeated. The reptilian creature's scales rippled with colors that Minho's translator marked as mockery. The newest species in the Senate wants to change our laws. First, Minho continued, ignoring the interruption. We request an exit clause. Any species should be able to leave the agreement with proper notice. Second, we request an oversight committee to ensure the resources are used as promised. Third, we request that no military forces be stationed on member worlds without explicit permission from that world's government. The chamber erupted. Laughter bounced off the walls. Yuna's face turned red. But Minho remained still. Exit clause, someone shouted. As if this were a business deal. Oversight committee, another voice called. Do they not trust us? High Chancellor Vextor raised one wing for silence. It took a full minute for the noise to die down. Ambassador Park, let me explain something to you. Perhaps in your short time among the stars, you have forgotten how things work. The Senate is not a negotiation. It is a unified body. We vote. We decide. We act as one. With respect, High Chancellor, we are not one. We are 200 different species, with 200 different needs. And yet only one species seems unable to understand basic cooperation, Grawl said. His tongue flicked out, tasting the air. Tell me, Ambassador, do humans even have enough industrial capacity to matter? From what I have seen, your species builds small things, computers, medical supplies, tools. You are not a manufacturing power, like the Draxians or the Korvax. More laughter. Minho noticed that not every species was laughing. A few ambassadors looked uncomfortable, but most were either chuckling or looking bored. We contribute what we can, Minho said simply. Humans needed rescue from their own star system, Vextor said. His tone was not quite cruel, but it was close. Your species was confined to one world, using chemical rockets, killing each other over resources. We gave you faster-than-light travel. We gave you clean energy. We gave you access to the galactic community. And now you stand here making demands? Yuna took a half-step forward, her hands clenched. Minho touched her elbow gently, stopping her. We are grateful for the hand of friendship extended to us, Minho said. We have tried to be worthy of it. But gratitude does not mean we surrender our right to govern ourselves. Govern yourselves? Grawl leaned forward. You are barely keeping your own colonies functioning. Half of them want independence from Earth. Your species cannot agree on anything. You have 17 different languages, 40 different governments, and you still have wars among yourselves. We do, Minho agreed. We are fractious. We argue. We disagree. But we work it out. That is what free people do. Free people, Vextor repeated. Such a human concept. Let me be clear, Ambassador. The vote has passed. 187 species have agreed. Only one has disagreed. You are outvoted. The treaty is law. Minho stood silent for a long moment. The chamber waited. Yuna looked at him, her eyes asking what they would do now. Then, humanity must respectfully decline to comply, Minho said. The silence lasted perhaps 3 seconds. Then the laughter came again, louder than before. Decline to comply? Graal's colors shifted to bright orange. You cannot decline. You are a member of the Senate. You follow Senate law. Oh, we joined the Senate freely, Minho said. Leave. Vextor's wings spread wider. You cannot leave. There is no mechanism for leaving. You signed the founding charter. Quote, a charter written by species who believed no one would ever want to leave, Minho said. He gathered his papers, sliding them into a simple folder. We find that concerning in itself. If you leave, you lose everything. Another senator called out. No trade rights. No defense agreements. No access to Senate space. We understand, Minho said. Your colonies will be isolated, Graal added. Your ships will have no safe harbors. Your people will have no protection. We survived for thousands of years with no protection but our own, Minho said. He turned to Yuna. Ambassador Kim, please signal our delegation. We are leaving. Yuna pulled out her communicator, her hands shaking slightly. But her voice was steady. All human personnel. Begin departure protocols. Effective immediately. You are making a terrible mistake, Vextor said, but he was no longer laughing. The galaxy is dangerous. You need us. Minho looked at the High Chancellor. His face showed no anger, no fear, no pride, just calm certainty. Perhaps we do. But we would rather face danger as free people than live in safety as subordinates. Good day, High Chancellor. Esteemed senators. Humanity wishes you well. He walked toward the exit. Yuna followed. Their footsteps echoed in the sudden quiet. They will come crawling back within a month, someone said. The laughter returned. But it sounded forced now. Minho and Yuna reached the great doors of the Senate chamber. As they passed through, Yuna whispered, Did we just end humanity's place in the galaxy? No, Minho said quietly. We just found out what it is really worth. Behind them, the Senate returned to its business. The human seats sat empty for the first time in 80 years. No one seemed to notice. Captain Doyun Choi received the order at 0300 ship time. He was sitting in his quarters aboard the HSS Incheon, reviewing patrol reports from the Outer Rim. The message came through on secure channels, flagged with the highest priority code. All human military vessels are to withdraw from joint operations immediately. Return to Sol System. Acknowledge receipt. Doyun read it twice. Then he called his first officer. Wake the crew. Plot a course home. We leave in 2 hours. Sir? We are scheduled to patrol Sector 7 for another 3 weeks. Not anymore. Get everyone ready. And do it quietly. No announcements to the station. Within 2 hours, every human ship in the sector had vanished. They did not file flight plans. They did not say goodbye to their alien counterparts. They simply powered up their drives and left. The other species woke up to find the human ships gone, leaving only empty docking berths and cancelled patrol routes. On the research station Kepler 9, Dr. Hana Lee was packing her equipment when her Traxian colleague walked in. His tentacles waved in confusion. Hana, what are you doing? We are in the middle of the pulsar analysis. I am sorry, Vexnar. I have to go. We all have to go. Hana sealed another container of her personal research. The data is all in the shared drive. You can continue without us. Continue? Your team makes up half the research staff, and the analysis algorithms are all coded by your people. We cannot just continue. You will figure it out, Hana said gently. She touched his shoulder with one hand. You are brilliant scientists. You do not need us. But Vexnar's skin turned pale blue, which meant worry. This is about the Senate vote, is it not? Hana, please. That is politics. We are scientists. We do not have to be involved in that. Everything is politics in the end, Hana said. She picked up her last container. Take care, my friend. Maybe someday, we can work together again. Unquote. Unquote. She left him standing in the laboratory, surrounded by equipment that half his team no longer knew how to operate. Across the galaxy, the same scene played out in different ways. Human traders canceled contracts. Human engineers left construction projects. Human teachers packed up their classrooms on exchange stations. Human doctors closed their clinics. No one made speeches. No one complained. They simply left. On the trading station New Horizon, Jiwan Kang was meeting with a Korvax trade minister. I am very sorry, Minister Tolax, but we cannot fulfill the contract for medical supplies. We are canceling all agreements outside human space. Tolax's multiple eyes blinked in sequence. Cannot or will not. We have a binding contract. Cannot, Jiwan said. Force majeure clause. Political circumstances beyond our control. You will receive a full refund for any prepayment. A refund does not help us. We need those antibiotics. The plague season starts in 2 months. Your factories produce 60% of what we need. I understand. I truly do. But our government has made its decision. Jiwan stood and bowed slightly. I wish you the best in finding another supplier. There is no other supplier. Tolax's voice rose. Not at that volume. Not at that price. What are we supposed to do? But Jiwan was already walking away. Behind him, Tolax stared at the cancelled contract on his screen, realizing that his world had a serious problem and no solution. The Senate noticed after 3 days. Suddenly, embassies were empty. Trade offices were closed. Human ships were not answering calls. Ambassador Yuna Kim, who had stayed behind to handle the transition, met with the Senate secretary. Where is everyone? The secretary demanded. We have 17 diplomatic requests waiting for human response. There are trade disputes that need human mediators. There are technical support requests from 4 different worlds. Everyone has gone home, Yuna said calmly. Gone home? Just like that? Yes, just like that. The secretary, a tall being covered in soft fur, sat down heavily. This is childish. This is irresponsible. You cannot just walk away from your obligations. We can, Yuna said. We are. And we have fulfilled all our obligations. Every contract has been cancelled properly. Every deposit has been refunded. Every project has been documented. We have broken no laws, except the Senate vote, the treaty. We decline to follow an unjust law. That is not the same as breaking it. You will regret this, the secretary said. His voice was hard now. The Senate will issue sanctions, trade embargoes, travel restrictions. That is your right, Yuna said. She placed a data chip on the desk. This contains all the access codes for the embassy systems, all pending files, and all records you might need. The building is yours. Humanity thanks the Senate for 80 years of cooperation. She turned to leave. Ambassador Kim, the secretary called. She stopped. Why are you doing this? Really, the treaty would not have hurt you. 40% industrial capacity is nothing for a species as small as yours. Yuna looked back at him. It is not about the percentage. It is about being told what to do, without being asked what we think. It is about being laughed at when we ask for basic dignity. It is about being called children when we request respect. We never called you children. High Chancellor Vex Tor did, in front of the entire Senate, and everyone laughed. Yuna's voice stayed calm, but something cold lived in it now. We will not stay where we are not respected. It is that simple. She walked out. The secretary sat in the empty office, surrounded by furniture humans had used for 8 decades. For the first time, he wondered if maybe the Senate had made a mistake. The Senate issued a formal demand 3 days later. A strongly worded declaration that humanity must return to negotiations immediately. That their withdrawal was illegal and would have consequences. That they were behaving like spoiled children throwing a tantrum. Earth's response came 6 hours later. It was 1 sentence long. Humanity respectfully declines. We wish the Senate well. High Chancellor Vextor called an emergency session. This is unacceptable. We must show them they cannot simply ignore us. Propose sanctions. Trade embargoes. Something to bring them back to reality. But Senator Grawl, who had mocked humans so easily before, now looked uncertain. High Chancellor, before we do that, perhaps we should assess the actual impact of their withdrawal. It has only been a week. How much damage can they really do by leaving? They are a minor species, Vextor said. Their contribution was minimal. We will barely notice they are gone. The Senate agreed. They passed a resolution condemning humanity's childish behavior and moved on to other business. They would not realize their mistake for another month. 6 months passed like water through fingers. The Senate continued its work, passing laws and managing the galaxy. No one talked about the humans anymore. They had become a story people told, about a stubborn species that left and would surely come back begging soon. Then, the plague season hit Luxara. Minister Tolax stood in the medical center, watching doctors try to treat patients with medicine that was not working properly. The antibiotics they had managed to buy from non-human suppliers were weak, less effective. Patients who should have recovered in days were taking weeks. Some were dying. Why are these not working? Tolax demanded. The chief doctor, an elderly Luxaron with tired eyes, held up a vial. Because these are made with helioxa compound. The human antibiotics used Medixon 7. The molecular structure is similar but not identical. Medixan 7 works better against our biology. Much better. Much better. Much better. Then why did we not buy Medixan 7? Because only humans manufacture it. They invented it specifically for carbon-based species. With our type of cell structure. No one else makes it. Arban, Tolax felt something cold in his stomach. How many other medicines did they make? The doctor pulled up a list on his screen. According to this, humans manufactured or improved 63% of all antibiotics in Senate space. They also made most antivirals, about half of surgical equipment, and nearly all of the advanced diagnostic tools. That cannot be right. They are too small. They are efficient. And they focused on things other species found boring. Medicine does not make much profit compared to weapons or ships, but humans seem to care about it anyway. Tolax left the medical center and went directly to the Senate. He requested an emergency session. When he stood to speak, his voice shook with anger and fear. We have a crisis. The plague season is killing more people than usual because we do not have proper medicine. We do not have proper medicine because humans made most of it. We never noticed because they just made it. Quietly, efficiently, without making a fuss. Senator Grawl shifted in his seat. We will find other suppliers. Give it time. Senator Grawl, give it time. Time? People are dying now. And it is not just medicine. Tolax pulled up a chart. Humans manufactured 73% of all faster-than-light drive components, 81% of advanced computer processors, 65% of energy conduits. They were not a minor species. They were holding up the infrastructure, and we never even noticed. Access. The Senate chamber went very quiet. High Chancellor Vextor stood. This is an exaggeration. We have industrial capacity across hundreds of worlds. Yes, but check who maintained it, Tolax said. His voice was bitter now. Check who designed the systems. Check who wrote the code that runs the trade networks. Check who updated the navigational databases. It was humans. Always humans. Doing the boring work. The invisible work. While we built weapons and argued about territory. Over the next weeks, the reports came in like a slow flood. Each one worse than the last. The Korvax energy grid suffered cascading failures. Human technicians had always maintained the quantum stabilizers that kept the grid balanced. Without them, power outages were becoming common. The Korvax engineers tried to fix it themselves, but the systems were complex, human-designed, human-maintained. The manuals were written in ways that assumed human expertise. The trade routes that connected the galaxy started having problems. Ships were getting lost. Not many, but enough to notice. The navigational database that everyone used was updated weekly with new hazard information, gravitational shifts, and route optimizations. Humans had run that database. Now, it was 6 months out of date. Space was big and dangerous, and outdated information killed people. Pirate attacks increased by 40%. No one understood why until someone checked the patrol patterns. Human ships had been covering 17% of Senate space. Not with big warships or aggressive tactics, just with quiet, constant presence. They patrolled the empty regions, the boring sectors, the places where nothing important happened. Except now, pirates knew those places were unguarded. Senator Grawl called a private meeting with his advisors. Find out exactly what we lost when the humans left. All of it. I need to know how bad this is. 3 weeks later, his head advisor presented the report. She was a small Traxian named Vesa, and she looked frightened. Senator, it is worse than we thought. Humans were involved in some way with 72% of all supply chains in Senate space. Not as the only supplier, but as a critical link. They made the parts that other species use to make their products. They refined the materials. They ran the logistics networks. They were everywhere. And we never noticed, because they never made noise about it. How did this happen? How did one species become so embedded? Because they were good at it, and cheap, and reliable. Other species focused on prestigious work, weapons manufacturing, starship building. Humans took the contracts no one else wanted: medical supplies, computer chips, maintenance equipment. All the boring things that keep civilization running. Medical supplies. Grawl felt old suddenly. Very old. Can we replace them? Eventually. But it will take years. Maybe decades. And it will cost more. Humans were efficient. They had automated factories, advanced AI systems, quality control that was obsessive. Other species can do the work, but not as well, and not as cheaply. What do we do now? Vesa hesitated. We could try to negotiate. They will not. They made their choice. Then we adapt. We suffer. We rebuild. What other choice do we have? Ah. Grawl dismissed her and sat alone in his office. On his desk was a medical report from his homeworld. The hospitals were running low on supplies. His grandson needed surgery. But the hospital was waiting for proper equipment. Equipment that humans used to make. He had laughed at Ambassador Minho Park, called humans insignificant, said they barely mattered. Now his grandson might die because humans had left, and Grawl had never realized how much they mattered. The Senate sent another delegation to human space. This time, not with demands but with a request for talks. The delegation waited at the border of human territory for 3 days. Finally, a human patrol ship arrived. The captain was a young woman named Narration. She listened to the delegation's speech about cooperation and mutual benefit. Then, she spoke calmly. Humanity appreciates your interest in resuming relations. However, we are currently focused on internal development and relationships with non-Senate species. We wish you well in your endeavors. Please leave human space within 24 hours. But we need to discuss. There is nothing to discuss. You made your position clear. We made our choice. Both sides should respect that. The delegation returned to Senate space empty-handed. High Chancellor Vex Tor received their report in silence. For the first time since humans left, he wondered if they were coming back at all. And if they did not, what would the galaxy become? 1 year after humans left, the Galactic Defense Initiative launched its first major operation without them. The Draxian horde had been raiding outer colonies for months, growing bolder with each attack. The Senate decided to show strength. 200 ships from 30 different species gathered at Rally Point Gamma. Admiral Vex's Corps, brother to the High Chancellor, commanded the fleet. He was confident. The Draxians had perhaps 60 ships. The Senate had 200. The math was simple. The battle lasted 4 hours. 23 Senate ships were destroyed, not by the Draxians, by each other. The Korvax battleship Destiny fired on what it thought was a Draxian cruiser. It was actually the Traxian destroyer, Valiant. The Traxian ship returned fire, instinctively. Within minutes, 3 different species were shooting at each other, while the Draxians watched in confusion, then retreated safely. Admiral Vex's Corps called for ceasefire. It took 20 minutes for all ships to stop firing. By then, hundreds of soldiers were dead. The investigation revealed the problem immediately. Every species had their own communication protocols, their own targeting systems, their own identification markers. For decades, humans had provided the translation layer, the software that made everything compatible, the updates that kept all systems synchronized. Without it, the fleet was 200 ships that could barely talk to each other. How did we not notice this before? Vexcor demanded. His communications officer, a young avian named Excelthas, looked miserable. The human systems were integrated at such a deep level that we thought they were standard. They updated automatically. They just worked. We never questioned it. Can we fix it? Eventually. But we need to get 30 different species to agree on one standard. That alone could take years. Then we need to rebuild all the systems. Then we need to test them. Then, how long? Zelthus was quiet for a moment. 5 years. Maybe 10. The Draxian horde sensed weakness. Their raids increased. Colonies that had been safe for decades suddenly faced attacks. The Senate fleet could not respond effectively. Every operation required weeks of preparation just to make sure ships could communicate. By the time they arrived, the raiders were gone. 15 colonies were abandoned. The refugees flooded into Senate core worlds, bringing stories of betrayal and incompetence. The economic situation got worse. Trade between worlds continued, but it was slow now, inefficient. The logistics networks that humans had built were falling apart. Ships took longer routes because the navigational data was outdated. Cargo sat in warehouses because the inventory systems did not sync properly anymore. Prices rose. Shortages became common. On the Korvax homeworld, protests erupted. The energy grid had collapsed twice in the past month. Food supplies were inconsistent. The government promised solutions, but nothing changed. We want to leave the Senate, the protesters chanted. We want freedom. The Korvax government approached the Senate with a formal request. Our people are suffering. The treaty is not working for us. We wish to withdraw. 1. High Chancellor Vextor stood before the Senate Assembly. His wings were no longer bright and proud. They drooped slightly, showing his age. The Korvax cannot leave. The treaty has no exit clause. We are bound together. That is exactly what the humans said, a Korvax representative replied. And you told them they were wrong, that they had to stay. Now we want to leave. And you tell us the same thing. Do you not see the problem? The Senate voted to deny the request. The Korvax were required to stay. But the damage was done. 3 other species immediately filed similar requests. All were denied. All were required to stay in a system that was clearly failing. Captain Doyun Choi stood on the bridge of the HSS Incheon, watching a desperate Luxoran cargo ship approach human space. It was the fifth one this week. They always told the same story. They needed supplies. They needed medicine. They needed help. They were willing to pay. Should we turn them away, Captain? His first officer asked. Doyun considered. Scan them. Make sure they are not armed. Then allow them to dock. We will trade with them. But make it clear we are trading with Luxara, not the Senate. Understood. The word spread quickly. Human space was accepting trade, but only with individual species, not with the Senate as a whole. It was a subtle distinction, but it mattered. Every species that traded with humans was acknowledging that humans were right, that the Senate had been wrong. Dr. Suji Han gave an interview that went viral across the galaxy. She was older now, her hair starting to gray, but her eyes were still sharp. Why did we leave? She repeated the interviewer's question. We left because we were not respected. We contributed to the Senate for 80 years. We built infrastructure. We solved problems. We kept things running. And when we asked for basic consideration, we were laughed at, called children, mocked for being too small to matter. So we left. Not in anger, not with threats. We simply left. And now the galaxy sees what we were actually doing. Do you regret it? The interviewer asked. No. We have grown more in 1 year of independence than we did in 80 years of Senate membership. Our technology has advanced. Our economy is strong. We have built new alliances with species outside Senate space. We are respected now. That matters more than safety. The interview was watched by billions. On dozens of worlds, people started asking uncomfortable questions. Why could humans thrive outside the Senate while Senate members were struggling? What did that say about the Senate itself? High Chancellor Vextor sat in his private chambers, watching the numbers come in. Economic growth, down 17%. Military readiness, down 40%. Public satisfaction, down 30%. All in 1 year, all because one species left. Senator Grawl entered without being announced. He looked older too. His scales had lost their brightness. We need to bring them back. They will not come, Vextor said tiredly. Then we need to change. The treaty needs an exit clause. Voluntary participation. Respect for sovereignty. All the things humans asked for. If we do that, half the Senate will leave. Maybe they should. Maybe we built something that only works through force and fear. Maybe humans saw that before we did. Vextor turned to look at his old friend. Are you saying we were wrong? I am saying I mocked Ambassador Minho Park for asking for dignity. Now, my people are suffering because we could not give it to him. Yes, we were wrong. The question is whether we can admit it. The Senate held an emergency session. For the first time in its history, it voted to send a formal apology to a departed species. The message was simple. Humanity, the Senate acknowledges errors were made. We request dialogue, not as subordinates, but as equals. We are willing to discuss changes to our structure. Please respond. 3 days later, Earth's response arrived. It came from Minho Park. Now serving as Earth's prime counselor, the Senate's message is received. Humanity appreciates the sentiment. However, we will need to see concrete changes before any dialogue can begin. Words are easy. Actions show truth. When the Senate has reformed itself according to its own conscience, we will be willing to talk. Until then, we wish you well. It was not a rejection. But it was not acceptance either. It was a challenge. Show us you have changed, then we can talk. The Senate faced a choice. Change everything they had built over centuries, or continue as they were, watching their civilization slowly crumble. For the first time in galactic history, the Senate realized they might not have the power they thought they did. 2 years after the humans left, 17 species walked out of the Senate. They did not ask permission. They simply filed formal notices and departed. The Senate tried to stop them. But what could they do? Send warships? That would prove the humans had been right all along. The 17 species gathered in neutral space. They sent a message to Earth. We wish to form a new association, one based on voluntary cooperation. We would be honored if humanity would join us as a founding member. Minho Park, now older and gray at the temples, read the message carefully. Then he called a meeting of Earth's council. Yuna Kim was there, along with Doyun Choi, Hana Lee, and a dozen others. They want to start over, Minho said. They want to do it right this time. Do we trust them? Doyun asked. His years in command had made him cautious. Trust is earned, Hana said. But everyone deserves a chance to learn from mistakes. Yuna, now Earth's senior diplomat, looked at the names on the list. These are the species that treated us fairly. The Luxarans always traded honestly. The Korvax respected our science. The Traxians were good friends. If we are going to build something new, these are the right partners. What do we call it? Not a Senate, Minho said firmly. Not an empire. Not a federation. Something new. They settled on the Free Trade Coalition. Not because they only cared about trade, but because trade required trust. If you could trade freely, you could do anything together. The first meeting of the coalition was held on a neutral station. No grand chambers, no artificial sun. Just a simple meeting room with representatives from 18 species sitting around a table. Minho spoke first. We are here because the old system failed us. It failed because it was built on force and hierarchy. We want to build something different. Something based on 3 principles. First, voluntary participation. Any member can leave at any time. Second, equal voice. Big species and small species have the same vote. Third, sovereignty. No member can be forced to do anything by the others. We cooperate because we choose to, not because we must. The Luxaran representative, Minister Tolax, nodded. We have learned the cost of forced cooperation. It breeds resentment and weakness. We agree with these principles. It took 3 months to write the new charter. Every word was debated. Every clause was questioned. But in the end, they had something that everyone could agree to. Something fair. The coalition grew slowly. 20 species, then 30, then 50. They came because they saw what the coalition had that the Senate did not. Freedom, respect, genuine cooperation. The Senate watched this happen with growing alarm. Their membership was dropping. Their economy was struggling. Their military was ineffective. And just across the border, the coalition was thriving. High Chancellor Vextor was forced to resign. The Senate blamed him for the crisis, though everyone knew the problems ran deeper. The new chancellor was a Traxian named Nethara. She was younger, pragmatic, and willing to admit mistakes. Her first act was to request a meeting with Minho Park. They met on the same neutral station. Nethara came with a small delegation. Minho came alone. Thank you for seeing me, Nethara said. Her translator carried the weight of humility in her voice. Thank you for coming, Minho replied. They sat across from each other. 2 people trying to fix something that was badly broken. Tell me what we did wrong, Nethara said. Not the obvious things, the deep things. Minho was quiet for a moment. You confused contribution with worth. You thought because humans made small things, we were small. But civilization is built on small things. Medical supplies, computer chips, communications protocols. These are not glamorous, but they matter. You also legislated without consent. You voted on laws that affected us without listening to our concerns. That is not cooperation. That is domination. Rightment. Though, we thought we knew better. Maybe you did. But knowing better does not give you the right to force others. My daughter taught me that. She was 6 years old, and she wanted to stay up late. I knew she would be tired the next day. I knew better. But I explained why bedtime mattered, and I let her choose. She chose to sleep. Not because I forced her, but because she understood. That is how you treat people you respect. Nathara absorbed this. The Senate can change. We are already working on amendments. Exit clauses. Oversight committees. Sovereignty protections. Everything humans asked for. Good. But do not do it for us. Do it because it is right. Will you come back? If we change everything? Minho smiled sadly. Chancellor, we have built something new, something better. We are not the same species that left 2 years ago. We have grown. We have allies. We have respect. Coming back to the Senate would mean giving that up. We will not do that. Then what do you want? We want to help. The Senate does not have to die. It can become something better. We can show you how. If you are willing to learn, over the next year, the Senate restructured completely. The forced participation clause was removed. The voting system was changed to require consensus on major issues. Sovereignty protections were added. It was painful. Some species refused to accept the changes and left. But others stayed, willing to try something new. The new treaty was called the Concordat of Valorum. It was based on human principles, but it belonged to everyone. Young Jaewon Lee led the human delegation that helped with the transition. He was barely 30, full of energy and hope. He worked with Senate representatives to rebuild their systems, modernize their protocols, and teach them the lessons humanity had learned. Why are you helping us? A Senate representative asked him one day. We treated your people badly. Because holding grudges is exhausting, Jaewon said. And because you are trying to change. That takes courage. We respect courage. 5 years after humans left, the galaxy looked different. The Senate still existed, but it was smaller, leaner, more focused. The coalition had grown to 70 species. Some worlds belonged to both. Some to neither. But everyone was cooperating, trading, helping each other. Not because they were forced to, because they chose to. Ambassador Yuna Kim, now in her 50s, gave a lecture at the Galactic University. The auditorium was packed with students from 100 species. They wore translator pins, human technology, freely shared with anyone who wanted it. A young avian student raised his wing. Ambassador, I have studied the history. The Senate was cruel to humans. You would have been justified in seeking revenge. Why did you not? Yuna thought about that night 2 years ago, walking out of the Senate chamber with Minho. The laughter following them. The mockery. Because revenge would have made us like them, she said. We chose to be better. We left quietly. We built something new. We showed them what the galaxy could be, not through violence or threats. Through example. Real power does not need to shout. It just is. But they laughed at you. Yes. And now they learn from us. Which do you think hurt their pride more? The students laughed. It was a warm laugh. Not mocking. Understanding. After the lecture, Yuna walked through the campus. She saw species studying together, trading ideas, building friendships. Everywhere she looked, she saw cooperation. Real cooperation. The kind you cannot force. Her communicator buzzed. A message from Minho. Council meeting tomorrow. The Senate has officially adopted the Concordat. They are asking if we would consider observer status. Your thoughts? Yuna smiled. Observer status. Not membership. Not subordination. Just presence. Watching. Helping when asked. That felt right. She typed her response. Yes. But make it clear we are there as equals, or not at all. The response came quickly. Of course. Anything else would be uncivilized. Yuna laughed. She remembered Ambassador Minho saying those words to High Chancellor Vextor 2 years ago. The galaxy had changed since then. Grown. Learned. She looked up at the sky. Hundreds of worlds up there. Billions of beings. All trying to figure out how to live together. It was messy. It was complicated. But it was real. And that was worth more than any treaty forced through laughter and mockery. The galaxy had learned a lesson. One that humans had known for a long time. You cannot build civilization on force. You build it on respect. On cooperation. On the quiet recognition that everyone, no matter how small, has value. The Senate had chuckled when humans left without a sound. Now, years later, they understood. The silence had not been weakness. It had been dignity, and dignity, in the end, was the strongest foundation of all.